Hello everyone, this is James Shore with another test-driven JavaScript video. I'm recording this on the 1st of August 2012, picking up right where we left off in the last video. And we had just gotten a client-server test working, our very first client-server test in Node, and that is awesome. Now, I went back and I found the to-dos that I had accidentally deleted, so I brought those back. And so now what we need to do next is just sort of get this a little more polished. I think the first thing I want to do is I want to test that the test server, or test that the server returns hello world. Now that's something we'll change in the future, but that's good enough to start with. So we can take this exact same code, and obviously there's some duplication there that we'll want to remove. And we're going to assert that the response, now how does this work? We want to assert that the response we're getting is hello world. If we can do that, then I think we're good to go on this first task of create a very simple HTTP server and our first user story of creating a hello world server. Okay, I'm back. So I've done the research. The way this works is that when you make the request, this code right here returns a request object. This callback here with the response in it is just a, that's the spike, is just a shortcut for listening to the response event. So that should be equivalent, and it is. This response is another object that we can use to actually listen for the results. So, and that information is down here. Now, to get the data return, we're going to look for the data event, but I also want to look for a specific status code. So let's assert that the status code equals 200. That means OK. And so that will be compared to the status code. And that may just pass. Yeah, it passes because I think the default is to give the appropriate status code. But I think here in the response, we can, let's double check our spike. Yeah, response.status code, we can set it. So let's prove that. We should see our test fail. Perfect. 200 versus 404. Perfect. So we're just going to leave that as is, but now we've got some code testing that we're returning the correct status code. Good. And now I also want to test that we're getting the correct response. Now the response has an event saying when it's done. So we actually don't want the test to be done until that is called. So that's where we'll put our test.done. See if that works. Yep, it does. And if we took that out, of course, our test would fail. Well, in this case, it just hangs. So that gives me confidence that I'm doing that correctly, or reasonably correctly. Tests can never tell you, tests cannot ensure that your assumptions are correct, but they can ensure that you've coded your assumptions the way you think you have. So, like I said, I've still got a lot to learn about Jake, or not Jake. I still have a lot to learn about Node, but I think this is right. Okay, so we've got that, and now we need to make sure that we're getting our chunk. Now, we're not explicitly chunking the data, so I'm hoping that means that there's only one chunk, because that would make this code much easier to deal with. So what we want here, let's just say, let's just see if that function is called. Oh, interesting, it's not being called. Probably because we're not receiving any data. So we need to assert that we're getting any data. And here we can say received data is true. And then here at the end, we're going to want to assert that we've received data. And I think this test will fail. Yeah, we should have received response data, and we didn't. We can make that test pass by just passing some random data here. There, and now it's working, and we're seeing our high. So perfect. So now we can take this out, and we also want to assert that we're expecting hello world back. Now that chunk that we're getting there, it's not clear to me what we've got coming out of that. It's a readable stream. So it's either a buffer or a string. And we haven't done set encoding, so I'll bet you it's going to be a buffer. But let's go ahead and just compare hello world to chunk and see what happens. And this our expected, so this is our response text. Let's see what happens when we run that. Yeah, it failed because hello world doesn't equal a buffer, but that's fine. What we can do is either convert that buffer into text, or we can do set encoding. Where does set encoding happen? So we set the encoding. Yeah, let's set it to UTF-8. Now there's a lot of hard coding going on here. It still is going to feel a bit like hacking, but it's okay. We just need to sort of get the basics in place before we make it clean. Perfect. Now we're getting response text. It's not the right response text. What we're expecting is hello world. And there we go. Let's just make sure that worked. All right. So our lint is working. Our tests are working. We actually, I think that's right. We've got a basic hello world server and a basic test. And this is actually redundant to a test that it responds to GET requests. So I'm going to delete this. I don't think we need it. So let's go ahead and check that in. Server, it still needs cleanup though. So that's what we're going to do next. Let's go ahead. So we've got this duplication. If we look at our to-dos, we'll see that we've got duplication in our server. We've got some other stuff to do as well. This duplication's been removed. We only have one test method, so no duplication anymore. I think the next thing is to have the server use the port number that we pass in. So let's set that up. It's a number, but I'm making it a string because it's part of our string here. Actually, you know what? That's too complicated. Let's just do it this way. Pass it in there, get it there. Now this, of course, is going to work because we haven't changed the server code yet. But now we can go into here and take the port number and then pass port number here. And that works great. Okay, so what we've done is we've made server port number configurable. Cool. All right, well, we're starting to make some real progress here. That's all the time we have for this episode, so I will catch you all next time. Thanks for watching.